Frank, thank you for your ministry to soldiers. I got to give Josh a ride to the airport last week when he was home, and some of the stories that he has shared about some of the guys that he is around and with, the struggles are real. And so thank you for your ministry to them. And Josh was telling me, he's like, I said, Josh, you've accomplished a lot of stuff, you've done a lot of things, but how are you? And he said, God's got me here for a reason, and there's purpose behind what I'm doing, and a lot of guys I get to interact with don't have the hope that I do. So thank you for your ministry to them. John asked me on behalf of the elder board to give you a bit of an update on our search for some fresh legs and some fresh energy in our youth ministry. If you think back about a year and a half ago, we had set out to find some leadership in our youth ministry that was going to be fresh and lively and willing to take a pie in the face. Because this guy's not as willing to do it anymore. I will. No, I won't. We set out on a search for that. We had a significant private donor gift that came in to help fund that position. And so we went out, and we even had a couple candidates that we were looking at. Two of them were strong, and then as with everything else, COVID hit. And so we pushed the pause button on that, and we haven't been dealing with that for about a year. And then the elders got together and said, hey, we're in a more stable place now than we have been, and so we'd like to start that process again. And so you'll be hearing more about that as the days and weeks and months go on. And we'll keep you updated as far as what's going on with that. But they wanted me to communicate that to you. Well, today the title of the sermon is a feel-good title. Feeling guilty? Love it, right? So we get to start with guilt, but we're going to end with freedom. So that is pretty exciting. So you get to look forward to that. I'd say, a decade ago or so, this kind of became real for me. I had a four-wheeler quad that we grew up riding a lot, and I had been in my garage, stored it for a while, and it's time to sell this thing. Either I'm going to have to buy a bunch more to outfit our kids and family, our kids that are coming, or I can sell it, and we can get a boat, and we can put them all in one spot. So we decided to go that way, keep track of the kids rather than have them buzzing around. Well, now we borrow quads from the bakers, and we go buzzing around anyways. So, but we did that. I remember selling it, and I was talking with a guy in my garage, and he was counting out money, and I had the title there, and he asked me, he said, hey, would you be willing to put on the title a lower sale price than what we're selling it for? And I kind of was like, oh, what's that about? I hadn't bought and sold a lot of vehicles, and so I didn't know what he was talking about, so I just was like, no, I'm not going to do that. It was easy to say no because it didn't cost me anything. I didn't know exactly what he was asking, but it didn't cost me anything, so I just said no, and we moved on. Well, a few years later, we were going to buy a car, and we were buying the car, and we had the opportunity for the sale price to be recorded as lower than what we paid for it. And I was like, what is this? What is this thing about? Is this like normal? Is this common? Do people do this all the time? Maybe it's no big deal. I remember kind of like, well, I don't know if I should or shouldn't, and I'd have to look at the paperwork, but I'm pretty sure that we did that. And I always felt guilty afterwards. I always just carried around a little bit of like, I guess that wasn't truthful, And I'll stand here and tell you right now, I'm not a liar. But I lied. And so I always had some guilt about that as I kind of got a better picture of what that was, what was going on. And so it came up last week. We were looking at a travel trailer, and the guy said, man, nice guy. He said, hey, I'd be willing to sell this to you. And I put it on, if you want to save some money, I'll put lower price on the sale price. And I'll even write you a letter that says, gives you a reason why. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, no, I probably shouldn't do that. But that was a harder one to say no to. Why is it hard to say no to that temptation? Because it costs me something. It's a little bit harder. If you're buying something from me, nope, it's on you. But it's harder if it's on me. So we didn't end up doing that deal anyways, but the idea came up. And so as I've been preparing throughout my week, I was like, well, that's kind of a simple, small, little guilt thing. I mean, I have some guilt over that. Not a big deal, I guess, a little bit, but I've dealt with that. We moved on. But I guess God didn't think that was enough to make the point in my life. Last night, In my garage, we're working on bikes, and Tegan is there, and we have his front tire of his bike pulled off. I'm going to give you a little bit of a bike stuff. Front tire's pulled off. The caliper is exposed with the brake pads in it, and Tegan's, I'm not looking, we're messing around. He pulls the brake lever a couple times, and the pistons and the calipers go, they point in. And now we've got a bit of a problem. And I don't know how, so Tegan, I was like, Tegan, what happened here? Did you pull the brake levers? Yeah, I did. Like, oh, you shouldn't have done that. Oh. I let Tegan feel nervousness, fear. Dad, did I break it? Did I ruin it? I let him sit with that, and I let him feel bad. What a jerk, Dad. Little kid. Sorry, he's not little. He's 12 years old, about to be 13. He's a little kid. He pulls the brake lever, doesn't even know it, and now we've got this problem to deal with, and I let him feel guilty because he did that, and I let him know that I was disappointed. Jerk, Dad. So there you go. Am I feeling guilty? Yes, I was. So I called him this morning, and I said, hey, I got to apologize. I talked to him before I left, and then I felt really bad when I got here, so I had to call him again, say, hey, I'm really sorry about this. That was rude of me to do. I should have said to you, oh, bummer, but I'm here to help you. Whatever it is, we'll figure it out together. That's what I should have said. So I've apologized, and I asked him if I could share about that today. He said yes, and so we're all good. But we carry around some of this guilt from the mistakes that we make, the choices that we have, and we compromise our convictions, we compromise the truth, we compromise who we want to be, and we're tempted at workarounds. Well, fortunately, the big idea today is that Jesus restores guilty followers. If there's nothing else from today, Jesus restores guilty followers. The rest of our conversation today is just unpacking and demonstrating that that's what he does through Scripture. I want to pause just for a second, and I want to mention that whatever things kind of come to the surface for you today, big, small, I don't know, whatever kind of guilt you may be carrying as baggage, as we go to God, as we go to Jesus, and we get the restoration that Jesus brings, it is important to pause and to recognize that some of the impact of your sinful decisions, mistakes, mishandling situations, there are practical and relational implications to some of the decisions that you've made. And as you embrace God's restoration here today for you, there still may be work to be done practically and relationally with people that aren't here or are here. There's work to be done. You don't just get to sit here and say, well, great, I'm free. My chains are gone. I'm restored. There are other people that your decisions have impacted that you may need to go do some work with today. You may need to call your son and say, I'm sorry for being a jerk dad. That's what I do this morning. And then we do the work to correct and change and grow. But, okay, so as I invite you to embrace that freedom that God brings, it's important to recognize, don't gloss over the fact that there's work to be done in a practical manner and relational manner. Okay, back to today. To get to John 21, there is some context work that we need to do to figure out and to understand what is going on in this John chapter 1, a small piece towards the end. What is the context leading up to and surrounding this time? We've been paying attention over the last few weeks about the death, resurrection of Jesus, and now we are living in the aftermath. After Jesus died and rose again, there are things that changed. And now that is the aftermath of those things that changed. So right now we are talking about living in the aftermath and some of the realities of the things that have changed. So we go back to the Last Supper. Remember, he was in the upper room. The Last Supper, broke bread, did the whole wine thing, and that was kind of progressing them through the weekend. They went to the Mount of Olives, and as we've been tracking this storyline of Jesus, there's also a sub-character in the storyline of Peter. And Peter is mentioned and called out a few times through this. Peter is not the main deal, but he definitely has a storyline through this. Let's go to Mark 14, 27 to 31, and we're going to kind of drop into this story, and we're going to see what's going on and kind of listen for what's going on through Peter. Let me pray for us. God, thank you for today. I just would lift up each one of us to you as we come across maybe some thoughts of the baggage we're carrying, the guilt that we feel that we're saddled with. And I just would pray that as we encounter your truth today, as we encounter you, that we would experience and run to you for freedom and restoration. God, thank you for this truth, and we give this over to you. Amen. Mark 14. This is Jesus says, "You will all fall away," Jesus told them, "for it is written, I will strike the shepherd and the sheep will be scattered. But after I have risen, I will go ahead of you into Galilee." Peter declared, "Even if all fall away, I will not." "Truly I tell you," Jesus answered, "today, yes, tonight, before the rooster crows twice, you yourself will disown me 3 times. But Peter insisted emphatically. Get a little bit of a glimpse about who Peter is, his personality, a very passionate guy with some zeal. We're going to hear that come up again. "Even if I have to die with you, I will never disown you." And all the others said the same. Passion, had some zeal. He was a bit impulsive with his words and what he did. Did you know that Jesus was rebuked by Peter? When Jesus said, "I'm going to go suffer, these are the things that are going to happen to me," Peter pulls him aside in a different room and says, No, that's not what's going to happen. He rebukes Jesus for that. Jesus says, "Where I'm going, you can't come with me." "I'm coming with you." He's the guy that when Jesus was walking towards the boat, walking on the water, Peter got out of the boat. He's the one that got out. He had a little bit of zip to him. So we follow this storyline. Peter just got told he's going to disown Jesus. He says no. Then they kind of progress their way to the Garden of Gethsemane. And what does Peter do there? Whacks off a guy's ear, right? Impulsive, passionate, with zeal, zest. Peter. What does Jesus do with the ear, by the way? That puts it back on. What if he put it on upside down? Yeah, that would be funny, right? Just put it on. That'd be funny. Okay. Peter chops off his ear, and so then Jesus gets arrested in the garden. He's taken away. They walk across the valley. He's taken away, and now he's before the high priest being questioned for the statements that he made, claims about who he was. Jesus is getting grilled. Peter and another disciple followed along. Luke 22:54. Then seizing him, Jesus, they led him away and took him into the house of the high priest. Peter followed at a distance. We know the story goes on that Jesus is questioned more and more. Sometimes he gives an answer. Sometimes he says, "It is as you say." But here's what's interesting is that where Jesus is and being questioned, Peter is not far away. Peter's close. In fact, Peter is within eyesight. How do we know that? Luke 22:55-57 is when Peter starts the denial process. When some there had kindled a fire in the middle of the courtyard. Remember that it's probably cold there right now, and Jesus is in with the high priest. There's a courtyard area, and there's a fire kind of there. And I can picture Peter kind of sitting down there with them. He's around the fire, and maybe he's kind of huddled in, doesn't want to be recognized, doesn't want to be seen, kind of keeping a low profile because the guy he's following is getting reamed over here. I want to stay incognito. I think I see Peter there around this campfire with a hoodie on and a baseball hat and sunglasses and a mask, right? I'm sure he's got a mask right there, an N95, whatever the number is. A servant girl saw him seated there in the firelight. She looked closely at him and said, "This man was with him." But he denied it. "Woman, I don't know him," he said. This reads a little bit casual. I don't know him. No, I'm not with him. I don't know if that's the case or not, but it reads a little casual. "Woman, I'm not with him. I don't know him." There's been times where I have kind of given a casual response to somebody. My good friend Jeff, a couple months ago, asked me if I wanted to go fishing. and text message. And I texted back to him and I said, no, I'm not really into fishing. What? I've fished before. I don't mind fishing. I went on a great fishing trip with my grandpa in Alaska. I went on a great fishing trip with some friends in Canada. I don't mind fishing. I'm not into fishing, but the truth was, Jeff invited me to go 2 months ago. Okay, we're looking outside now. Oh, yeah, let's go fishing. 2 months ago, would you have wanted to go fishing? Early in the morning, raining, in a cold little rowboat, where he has told me I haven't caught any fish lately. Jeff, I'm not into fishing. What? What is that? So I texted him back and I said, Jeff, I owe you an explanation. I don't want to go fishing that day. It's cold, it's wet, it's dry. I want to get my family off to a good start in the morning, yada, yada. There was a little bit of truth to that one, but I just was saying, I don't want to go fishing today, but don't count me out in the future, so I clarified. Oh, okay, so we laughed about that. Same Jeff. A few years ago, I don't remember being there. I was going to tell this story anyways. We had dinner 2 nights ago. I don't remember being there with him, but we were at Forelli's in DuPont, and we were having dinner there. And my friend Jeff, good friend, I've never known him to have any significant health issues or allergies or anything like that. But we're sitting there in DuPont at the pizza place, and the waitress comes by and says, oh, hey, you guys ready to order? Oh, I might suggest this, and what about this? You could try this. And she's throwing out lots of great ideas. She's pretty excited about it. And she says, here's this jalapeno dish or dip or whatever it was. And Jeff's response was, oh, no, I'm allergic to jalapenos. And as he retold me that story, he said, I have no idea why that came out of my mouth. I'm not allergic to jalapenos. In fact, I like jalapenos. Why did I just tell her, oh, no, I'm allergic to jalapenos? We laughed pretty good about that because Jeff, he's not a liar. But he lied. There was this casual, just kind of, no, I'm allergic. I don't know if he wanted to save face and not hurt her feelings that her great idea was not going to work out. I don't know what it was. I don't know why I told him I'm not into fishing, but sometimes these things come out of our mouth and we're just not sure what's going on. Where did that come from? I don't know if that's what Peter is doing here, but it reads a little casual. Now, Peter had a lot more on the line than a jalapeno that he was or was not allergic to. He was going to get lumped in with this Jesus guy that was going to get in a bunch of trouble pretty soon, or was in trouble. So I think he was probably trying to save his own tail from getting in trouble as well. But we all have those times where things just kind of come out that aren't necessarily the truth about the situation. Well, as we pop back into this story, Peter's denial gets a bit deeper. We're going to jump back in at 58. This is Luke 22. A little later, someone else saw him and said, you also are one of them. Man, I am not, Peter replied. So there we got an hour goes by. They're still maybe hanging out by the fire. They've got marshmallows out by now. I don't know. About an hour later, another asserted, certainly this fellow was with him, for he is a Galilean. There's a few different accounts of this throughout the Gospels. Peter replied, man, I don't know what you're talking about. Some of them talk about an oath that he took at that level. Just as he was speaking, what do you think happened next? Cock-a-doodle-doo. Cock-a-doodle-doo. That's what a rooster sounds like, by the way. The Lord turned and looked straight at Peter. That's how we know that they were close, because he looked right at him. There was enough closeness there that Peter was able to be seen by Jesus. Jesus looked over them. Can you imagine the look that Jesus gave Peter? What was it? I'm so disappointed in you. Ouch, that hurt. What was the look that Jesus gave him? I don't know. But Peter begins to be personalized throughout this story and by Jesus. Then, the Lord turned and looked straight at Peter. Then Peter remembered the word the Lord had spoken to him. Before the rooster crows today, you will disown me 3 times. And he went outside and wept bitterly. Peter's got this overwhelming sense of guilt and shame that comes flooding over him, and he's out the door, runs away from Jesus. Guilt, shame, a little more guilt and shame over saving a couple bucks on a sale of a car. A little more guilt and shame than brakes and a kid in the garage, but guilt all the same. Don't we have a tendency when we feel the guilt and shame to run and hide? That's what we do. When we are guilty of something, we don't want it to be exposed. We don't want people to know. We don't want to stick around. We don't run to Jesus. We run away from Jesus. Peter had the option at that point in time and saying, holy smokes, what did I do? Jesus, no, I'm with him. Jesus didn't, or Peter didn't. He hightailed it out of there, guilt and shame. We look, Adam and Eve, they're in the garden. God comes looking for them. What is their response to guilt and shame? They hide. What's your response? What's my response to guilt and shame? We hide. And we just get really good at hiding it, almost to the point that we believe it's not there. Yet we're still carrying around this burden of guilt. Okay. Jumping back into this story, Peter has just ran out in guilt and shame. Jesus, we know, is still questioned. He's passed around a little bit. They determine him to be guilty. They torture him. They hang him on a cross. He's dead. They bury him, and he comes back to life. That was quite a fast forward, but that's where we're at. Some ladies go to the tomb, and they go to find him, and what do they find? They find a tomb that the door has been opened, or the rock's been rolled away, and he's no longer there. Ladies show up. This is Mark 16, 6-7. And this is what they're told. Don't be alarmed, he said. You are looking for Jesus, the Nazarene, who was crucified. He has risen. He is not here. See the place where they laid him? But go, tell his disciples and Peter, he is going ahead of you into Galilee. There you will see him just as he told you. Peter is personalized. Peter's personalized. Now we've got a little bit of context to understand what's going to happen in John 21. This is Jesus' third appearance to his disciples, and the scene is, I'll just read you the scene. In John 21, we're going to be reading all through John 21. We'll start with verses 1-14. Afterwards, Jesus appeared again to his disciples by the Sea of Galilee. It happened this way. Simon Peter, Thomas, also known as Didymus, Nathanael from Cana in Galilee, the sons of Zebedee, and 2 other disciples were together. I'm going out to fish, Simon Peter told them. And they said, we'll go with you. So they went out and got into the boat, but that night they caught nothing. Early in the morning, Jesus stood on the shore, but the disciples did not realize that it was Jesus. He called out to them, friends, haven't you any fish? No, they answered. He said, throw your net on the right side of the boat and you will find some. When they did, they were unable to haul the net in because of the large number of fish. At this point, did they recognize Jesus? The text tells us that they did not. Some stranger, about 100 yards off on the shore, says, put your net on the other side of the boat. Why would they even do that? Oh, sure, here's some random guy on the shore says to put the net over here. Yeah, we'll go ahead. We've been out here all night. We're fishermen, but we'll do it. That's not part of where we're going, but I just find that really curious. Then the disciple whom Jesus loved, said to Peter, it is I, the Lord. Wait a minute. Then the disciple whom Jesus loved said to Peter, it is the Lord. As soon as Simon Peter heard him say, it is the Lord, he wrapped his outer garment around him, for he had taken it off, and jumped into the water. Peter, reactionary, impulsive, let's go, jumps in the water and goes towards the shore to be with Jesus. Now, I don't know, was the floor of the lake really shallow as it went out, and he's like running through there, lifting his legs, just splashing? Is it deep and he's swimming and crawl stroking as fast as he could? Water's flying everywhere. Maybe Peter stepped out of the boat thinking, oh, it's Jesus, I'll just walk on this water. Did that go through his mind? I don't know. Maybe he thought he was going to walk, and then he sinks, and I don't know. But he's on a mission to get over there to where Jesus is. Verse 8, the other disciples followed in the boat, towing the net full of fish, for they were not far from shore, about 100 yards. When they landed, they saw a fire of burning coals there with fish on it and some bread. Jesus said to them, Bring some of the fish you have just caught. So Simon Peter climbed back into the boat and dragged the net ashore. It was full of large fish, 153. But even with so many, the net was not torn. Jesus said to them, "Come and have breakfast." None of the disciples dared ask him, "Who are you?" They knew it was the Lord. Jesus came, took the bread, and gave it to them, and did the same with the fish. This was now the third time Jesus appeared to his disciples after he was raised from the dead. Remember, this isn't too long after Peter had just ran out of the courtyard with a ton of guilt. Peter has got to have this sense of guilt still dragging him down, weighing him down. He's carrying this heavy load of guilt and shame, yet a few days later, here is Jesus, and he's going to him. He's got to be carrying. I remember a car being sold years ago. Years ago, we can recall guilt. Been a few days. Peter's still carrying it around. Did Peter bring it up to Jesus? Did Peter run to him to say, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry"? Not according to the text. But Jesus brings it up. Jesus personalizes Peter again. John 21, 15 to 17. The story goes on. When they had finished eating, Jesus said to Simon Peter, "Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these?" "Yes, Lord," he said. "You know that I love you." Jesus said, "Feed my lambs." Again, Jesus said, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" He answered, "Yes, Lord, you know that I love you." Jesus said, "Take care of my sheep." The third time he said to him, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" Peter was hurt because Jesus asked him the third time, "Do you love me?" He said, "Lord, you know all things. You know that I love you." Jesus said, "Feed my sheep." It's a quick call out to say Jesus asking him 3 times is parallel with him denying 3 times. There was a completeness to what was going on there. Peter even acknowledges, "Jesus, you know that I love you. You know everything. You know that I love you." Well, if Jesus knew that Peter loved him, why would he ask the question? Why would he ask Peter, "Hey, do you love me?" Jesus already knows the answer. Why do you love me? What's going on here? Why is Jesus is up to something, right? He's up to something here with Peter. I think Jesus knew that something had to be done. There was something that he had to deal with. I think Jesus knew that Peter needed freedom from the guilt. I think Jesus knew that Peter needed restoration and renewal. There was a lot that was going to happen in Peter's life down the road. But I think Jesus knew these things about Peter and used Peter to tell this story about how Jesus brings restoration to the guilty. So here we are at breakfast on the beach. Jesus restores his guilty follower, Peter. That's just a fantastic picture. Breakfast on the beach. And Jesus cooks breakfast and says, "Peter, do you love me?" And Peter restores and forgives what he had done. I can articulate some of the guilt that I carry around that I need to take to Jesus and I need to get that freedom from. I don't know what has surfaced for you today, if anything. But in the aftermath, the truth that is there for both you and for me, in the aftermath of Jesus' death and resurrection on the cross, death and resurrection, he brings restoration to his guilty followers. He brings restoration to us. Whatever guilt, whatever shame we are carrying around with us, there is freedom from that, and there is restoration. What is the first step for us? Maybe number one is to be honest with yourself about some of that stuff that you may be carrying around. Maybe it's confessing it to him. Say, "Hey, I've got this guilt. I've got to bring it to you." Maybe it's asking him to expose and reveal some guilt that you have, some things that you need to clean up. I don't know what baggage you're carrying around, but I do know that there is freedom on the other side of the cross because we are living in the aftermath. I do know that our response, while it's not easy and not what we want to do, our response should be to run to Jesus rather than to run away. The restoration that he has for us is real. So as we're going to go into some worship, and I don't know where we're going to be, where you're going to be, but as we start heading towards worship, I would just pray that each of us would reflect on what's going on in us, that we would be honest, that we would ask Jesus to reveal some of those things to us that are burning us down, weighing us down. And as we're going to watch a video and we're going to do some worship, but the real work is not sitting and watching a video. It's not standing or sitting and saying some words. The real work here is on a heart level. Where are you at with this? What if Jesus said to somebody, "Go tell my disciples and Brian that I am alive and that I bring restoration"? Go tell my disciples. Jesus said this, right? He said, "Go tell my disciples and Peter. Go tell my disciples and Brian, I'm alive and I bring restoration. Go tell my disciples and Tammy that I'm alive and I bring restoration." I can't go much further than that and use your names because then it gets too personal and you get in trouble for that. Go tell my disciples and you put in your name, that he is alive and he brings restoration to his guilty followers.
Grace is God's unmerited favor for us, his crazy love. And the truth is, many times we struggle understanding it. If you find yourself struggling to understand God's grace, don't beat yourself up. Even the disciples struggled with understanding grace.
Jesus, is that you? You're alive. I can't believe you're alive. Okay, I was in the boat and I wasn't catching any fish, okay? But I heard this voice and the voice said, "Cast your net to the other side." And so I'm thinking, I'm a fisherman, I know what I'm doing, but I'm not catching any fish, you know? And so I throw that net over there and then a gaggle of fish pop into that net and I'm going, this is a total miracle. Who could have done that? I need to know who told me to throw the net to the other side. And boom, I look up and I mean, there is you. You're looking at me on the seashore going, "It is I, the Lord, and you're alive. I can't believe you're alive. This is awesome. Andrew, get out of the boat. Come on."
Peter.
Yeah.
Do you love me?
Yes, I love you. I love you. You're alive. This is so great.
Good, then feed my sheep.
Andrew, get out of the boat. Come on, man. It's him.
Peter.
Yeah.
Do you love me?
I love you, yes. And I'm so sorry about that rooster clucking. I had no idea what that meant, but I do now. I'm better for it, all right? Okay?
Then feed my sheep.
Andrew, I'm smiling, but I'm serious. Come on, get out of the boat. It's him.
Peter.
Yeah.
Do you love me?
Jesus, mere words cannot describe the passion that I have for you. I love you. You know everything. I love you.
Good. Good. Then feed my sheep.
I didn't even know you had livestock. That is so like you, though. There's something new about you all the time. That's what I love about you.
Peter,
Yeah.
do you remember the morning the ladies went to the tomb?
Yeah. We're all in the upper room trying to figure out what to do next, you know, because we thought you were dead. You know, you were dead, you know, and we're trying to figure all that out, you know. And Mary comes running up, and Mary's like saying, "Beehive, beehive, beehive." And I'm thinking, I'm allergic to bees. Like, keep them out, you know what I'm saying? But as she kept getting closer, I heard her correctly. She was saying, "He's alive, he's alive, he's alive." And we're going, "Who's alive, who's alive?" And she said, she was at the tomb, and the tomb was empty, and she said that there was an angel there, and the angel said, "Go tell the disciples and Peter that everything is okay, he is risen." And so me and John, we hightailed it down there, and if John says he beat me, he's totally lying, all right? I beat him, FYI, all right, you know? And we get down there, and I'm looking in that tomb, and it is empty. There's nothing in there, you know what I'm saying? And I'm like, what does this mean? What does this mean? And John is right there. John is so good with words. He should write a book. He is so good with words. And John said, "Don't you get it, Peter? This is everything Jesus said he was going to do, and you did it, and it's done. Let's go. This is so great."
Wait, the angel said what?
Go tell the disciples and Peter that everything is okay. He is risen. You've risen. Let's go. This
He
is
said what?
Go tell the disciples and Peter. Go tell the disciples and Peter. You said my name. Why did you say my name?
Peter, that's grace.
No, I don't deserve that, because that night people kept coming up to me asking me if I belonged to you, if I was with you, and I kept denying you left and right, all right? No, it'll take me my whole life to make up for what I did. It was unforgivable for what I did.
No. What I did on the cross was meant to take what is unforgivable and make it forgivable. That's my grace. It's not about you. It's always about me. That's grace, Peter.